Hey everybody, this is the Yield Coach Show, Season 1, Episode 4. All right, as you know, with this show, we, every episode, bring you dynamic entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business leaders, inspirational guests ready to open up, share their story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so you can learn lessons, gain advantages, and accelerate your own success. I am floored to have Eric Bumgarner join me today. I'm your host, Ian Brown. I left that out. And Eric, I'm going to give you a short bio. He's going to tell you a little bit more about himself. But Eric is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. 10 years in the commercial real estate business, focusing on industrial properties. He is a CCIM. He is the Senior Director of Colliers International in Northeast Florida. He is also leading a team of other agents. He's closed over 600 transactions. He's transacted over $400 million in commercial real estate value, and he has transacted and closed deals in over 7 states. With that, couldn't be more excited to introduce Eric Bumgarner.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, we're going to jump into just a little bit of your background. If you could tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be here on the show today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Ian. I don't even know where to start, but like Ian, like you said, I've been in the business about 10 years. Just kind of never had an intention growing up. Never realized I wanted to be a commercial real estate broker. Knew nothing about it, and it's weird looking back when I was younger. I didn't even look at commercial buildings and just have no understanding of how they came to be, and I think that's how a lot of the population is. And but right out of high school, I joined the Air Force. I never had intentions of going to college growing up. I was a troubled youth, and so I needed to find something to do to keep myself out of trouble. Joined the Air Force right out of high school. I did electronic warfare, worked on the C-130s and HH-60 helicopters. Went to Pakistan, met my ex-wife. When I got back, got out after my term, and then worked in a couple industries in low voltage industry with home building, and kind of worked my way up through that, where I ended up being in sales, because as a service technician I was upselling the customers more than the original salesperson, just because I knew the product and wasn't even trying to sell anything to them. Recession hits, no more homes being built, and so nobody's buying any upgrades. Lost my job, lost my house, lost my wife. It's like, crap, what do I do now? So being in the Air Force, I had the GI Bill. So at 29, I went to University of North Florida to focus on figure out what to do with myself. Took a time out, waited tables at night, went to school, got my bachelor's in 3.5 years. And towards the end of my last year or two, I took a couple electives, commercial real estate, and was like, man, that seems pretty cool. It's just seemed interesting. I mean, very difficult job, and that's kind of what attracted me. It was just high barriers to entry, and it was at that point I had pretty much nothing to lose. I already hit the bottom, so there was only one direction to go, was up. And there was a advertisement my senior year, local real estate company accepting applications, and went and interviewed, and I was like, yeah, this is... So that's kind of where I started. I started with the local company and just knowing nothing, naive. I knew it was not going to make any money for quite a while. At that time, I just had a kid who was probably about a year old. Her mom and I weren't together. I was working my butt off. She thought I was a fool for getting in that business because I wasn't going to make any money, and just kind of grinded my way up, and now it's kind of all ancient history. But
well, one thing that strikes me about you is, we've had some guests on in the past, like we had Pocky previously, and I think of like passion. I think of, we had Lauren Wyckoff on. She was building communities, and like her whole thing is like how people interact with one another and creating environments. With you, I have a couple like words that just jump out, but it's just one of the main ones I think of is focus. You're very focused and intentional. And I wonder, were you Were you always like that? I mean, you're the kind of guy that can map out a daily, a weekly, a monthly, a 1, 3, 5, 10-year vision, and none of us can totally control where that goes, but you are way better than the average professional at marching through a vision flow chart. Have you always been like that, or did you kind of pick that up in the military? Was it self-taught? I think it's very admirable.
I don't know. I mean, it's I'm sure to some degree my younger years maybe, but I mean, to going in this business, I knew, by that time I was, when I got in, I was about 30, 31, and so had quite a bit of life experience and just knew if there's any shot in hell to make it in this, you had to dedicate every second of your time. And I didn't come from silver spoon family where my dad owned a brokerage house, and
yeah,
I didn't luck out on
the
that.
usual ways into commercial real estate.
So that, there's only one way, and it was just sacrifice, and I just knew I had to dedicate every second of my time learning the industry. I mean, I just obsessed over it. I mean, I was literally all I did was read, study, drive the market, try to understand it, and you hope everything you're doing is going to actually pay off, and you're going through all these exercises you read about in the training, and just and you're like, man, I sure hope this pays off. I mean, first couple of years were tough. It was living in a tiny little apartment and eating ramen, and really had nothing else to do because I didn't have any money, so just
keeps the distractions low when there's no budget to go out and
exactly.
socialize or take girls on fancy dates.
Couldn't go dating really, and, so it was easy.
Yeah, that's funny. I remember, so just for the audience context, I've known Eric for quite a while, the better part of 10 years, and so I've been fortunate enough to watch his path. His journey has been really extreme. I mean, his ramp up in industrial brokerage is, I talk about it to people in the industry all the time. He literally just told you he came out of the Air Force, GI Bill. He's going to school at University of North Florida, comes into an elective commercial real estate course. It kind of lights him on fire. And really, once he sunk his teeth into that and he decided that's where he's going to go, he never turned back. He's a top producer at the top brokerage house in Northeast Florida. So his concentration is in industrial properties, and we'll jump into that asset class in a minute. But one thing you said that was kind of funny is, growing up, you'd see these commercial buildings, and you're like, you never think somebody's transacting or brokering. You're like, who owns them? Like, I remember as a kid, walking into big, 20-story office buildings. I just assumed they were like owned by the city or like some faceless corporation. Yeah. I would have never thought, as I got older, I ended up appraising hotels, brokering hotels, meeting the individuals that own the hotels. When you're young, you just think of like selling real estate as you just sell a house, and to be able to do it on such a large scale takes a lot more training, financial analysis. Your soft skills need to be pretty well honed because, in your world, these investors, you're not going to be fooling them. You show them an accurate picture, and they can decide on their own if it's investable or not. It's not like residential where necessarily someone's going to stumble into a property and buy it strictly on passion. They're going to buy your warehouses or strips on cash flow and IRR, or maybe they're an owner user. So backing up just a little bit, your military service. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Was there anything from that, as you jumped from Air Force to GI, University of North Florida, into commercial brokerage, were there any like lessons or takeaways from your military service that you've imparted, or is it just constant self-improvement?
Yeah, no, there's definitely the military service, kind of the things you learn and instill, brainwash you into, and it's part of the program, and just I think creating those high ethical and moral standards is, kind of the foundation. And one of the big things that separates the Air Force is from the other branches is their attention to detail. And the reason being is when you're working on multi-million or billion-dollar aircraft, there's no margin for error. So, I mean, I remember in boot camp, we had to fold a T-shirts, and I think it was like 4 or 6 inch perfect square, and it had to look like a pack of Swiss cheese. You had to, and we'd be out there with tweezers pulling. I mean, it had to be absolutely perfect. I mean,
wow.
It looked like a pack of Swiss cheese or something. And so, yeah, I guess perfection and just attention to detail is, there's no, with investors, there's no room for error. I mean, so that's one principle that I know is carried with me, and it might even drive my wife nuts.
Well, so much detail.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly. There's only one way of doing it, the right way.
Right.
Exactly. And just being honest. I mean, you're not going to get very far in this world. You might get far for short term, but not long term.
There's one thing that I noticed, like with you and a couple of my other friends that have done military service, and I'm going to paraphrase, but the notion of like embrace the suck. And what I mean by that is like, you're not naive to the fact that things will be difficult. You're not naive to the fact that it may be a long, difficult period, but embrace it. Embrace the pain, jump in the pain cave, embrace the suck, and these are some terms I've heard from guys that had military service. I actually hear it used sometimes in like CrossFit type communities. Not that I am in CrossFit, but I think the notion of like, it's going to be difficult, suck it up, run through it, and just brace for it. I think that this show is, a lot of the audience, investors, maybe they're entrepreneurs in real estate, maybe they're not in real estate, but I think most of the people that have broken through and are starting to have success, they understand there's not quick money. You might have quick money, say take a 10-year period. You might have got quick money in year 3. There might have been a quick money moment in year 6, maybe one in 9 and 10, but you had to prep and be ready to go the 10 years. If somebody just watches that one capital event, I'm sure Eric has left many a closing table. You walk out of the law firm's office and everybody's thinking, well, look at that check that guy just walked away with. And oftentimes they're healthy checks, they have commas and everything in them.
Oh, yeah.
But what people don't realize is that transaction, there could have been 10 deals preceding it that got all the way up to contract, heavily negotiated, didn't work out. Not to mention all the owners you had to meet with and all the work you had to do.
There's definitely, I've heard that, it's just so easy, deals just fall in your lap and you don't, I'm like, no, you don't even understand. Yeah, there's been deals that started 5 years prior and just many issues, environmental issues, or just other issues with the property. But yeah, to go back to the beginning, when I got in the business, one thing I can't remember exactly what you said, but just kind of suck it up and embrace
embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. Yeah, you probably remember, when I was in great shape when I started. I was training. I wanted to do marathon, and being I had nothing else to do and no money, so I just was running. I felt like Forrest Gump, and I just keep running. But no, one thing that as I'm running miles on end, 10, 15, 20 miles at all hours of the day, in the morning, at night, I remember just telling myself, don't be a little bitch. If it hurts, if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. And so, yeah. If it's easy, then
everybody would do it, and I totally understand. And if you're trying to avoid the pain in your entrepreneurial journey, or your business journey, you're probably not going to get where you want to go.
No.
If you spend all your time maneuvering around the pain points, you're probably just never. You're almost better off just like jumping right into the worst of it. I like to look at my day and say, what are like the 1 to 3 most difficult things I need to do today? And if I can control it, I always do those first.
Oh, yeah.
Jump right into them. Otherwise, they linger out on the back of your daily calendar, and you know what might happen? They just get bumped onto the next day.
No, that's exactly what. You
start
with the easy ones, and you're just like, okay, I'll get those. Let me go to the next little set of. No, you start with the difficult ones and get those, and the rest is, when you get those done, then the rest is kind of downhill.
So when you, I already know this about you, but you can share a little bit with the audience. I feel like you were an early embracer of technology in the commercial real estate world. So technology's obviously been around for a long time, but Eric's done a phenomenal job embracing technology and systems early on. Is there anything you can speak to about that part of your work?
Yeah. So starting off, kind of quickly figured out if nobody knows who you are, it's can be tough to be successful. So when I went to UNF, I got my degree in business with focus on marketing and finance, and so not that they taught me SEO in the marketing program, but I knew of it and had a friend who was he was doing SEO. He's done for Facebook, Box, a lot of big tech firms, Fanatics, and so he kind of, I was like, asked him one day, can you give me a crash course on this? And he did, and he's like, yeah, no, that's. So I just spent very beginning, first year, just laser focused on SEO, figuring out how to get my name out there, and just meta tagging and then doing all kinds of optimization of getting my name out there, all kinds of different networks and websites. So what happened was I was doing all that, and it was tedious work. It was brutal, and kind of, again, hope you're doing what you're doing is actually going to pay off. Are you doing it right? And then just kind of started trickling in and seeing some noticeable results, people finding me. And I remember the first time I really knew that what I did was starting to pay off. I had a great client now. They found me. They bought a property in Jacksonville, an industrial business park, and they're trying to find somebody here local to help them with the leasing up of it. And they're like, man, I don't know, everything we Googled, I mean, you just popped up on everything, and we figured, God, this guy got to be the guy to call. It doesn't matter what we search. We can search for Popeye's chicken in your it didn't matter.
Yeah, I remember you showed me maybe roughly 7-8 years ago. You opened up a photo, like a JPEG, I believe, and you showed me how to go to like the data behind the photo, and I think it's meta tagging, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and I've never done it since, but thank you for the lesson. Yeah. And I remember, even if it was like not a stock image, but a sample image of like one of your buildings, mm-hmm. you would jump in each and every posted photo on all of your listing pages and meta tag, keywords mm-hmm. in like the back end of the photo. Is that right?
Title, subject, meta tags. Description, and everything on there, I made sure Eric Bumgarner, industrial broker, was kind of embedded in all of that. So,
and what did that do? Just so, for those that don't know, what did that do as people started to, as you start putting what became, I'm sure, hundreds and then eventually thousands of, like, they're not really branded images, but they're meta tagged images. What did that start to do?
Well, when somebody would go search, whether it's a company looking to rent some warehouse space, or an owner who's looking for an agent to help sell or lease a building. So just like anybody, you go, if you're an owner, you'd go looking for space, warehouses for lease, Jacksonville. And, so when they do that, Google has their all the different algorithms on that. And the stuff that's meta tagged and SEO optimized gets the higher priority, so it gets you to the top of the page. And most people, just like anybody, you probably don't go past the first page or second page tops, and so that just bumped me up to the top, where whether it was a company looking to lease warehouse space or an owner looking for a broker, just kind of put me on the top of the list. Where
I like it. Eric was an early adopter of technology in commercial real estate, where for those of you in the audience that don't know this, commercial real estate, it lags residential real estate in a lot of ways when it comes to technology. Like, especially if you back up 5-10 years ago, you had people that are, maybe only putting a listing on like LoopNet or CoStar, typing out a couple of things, just expecting a phone call, maybe an image taken like off of their phone that's grainy or half sideways. Then you bring in guys like Eric that are embracing technology. All of a sudden you've got, I remember Eric flying drones when like nobody had drones. I mean, they might have existed, but Eric was an early adopter.
Yeah, the first one in Jacksonville. That's
he's out there flying drones, crashing them on some of our local interstates, and scraping them off the pavement and putting them back together and flying them again, then selling them to me broken. But Eric's from the meta tagging. His listings didn't look like other people's listings. I mean, if you're a commercial agent or thinking about this space, I mean, Eric's stuff looked way better from the professional aerials, floor plans, his cash flows, which is where you run an Excel model. Maybe it's a 5-year cash flow with all the different leases. You can go to the back and look at what an internal rate of return is going to be based on certain loan assumptions. So I'm not saying nobody was doing this, but 5-10 years ago, this might have just been happening on the properties that were going to trade for 5, 10 million, big properties that are going to have a whole team put together a big offering memorandum, where Eric was coming in and putting in a lot of attention to detail and a lot of technology in more of like your regional listings. And, you know, it might be, along with your incredible focus and hard work, I think it just like lit you on fire in this local market. And, you know, now, I mean, if you Google like Eric Bumgarner Jacksonville, you know, like you can see all these industrial properties, all of his offerings, lots of closed transactions, and he's certainly become the go-to guy in Northeast Florida industrial. I'm gonna jump a little bit into some of your own, and you know, you've facilitated a mountain of investments on behalf of others as their broker, both as, you know, the listing side and, you know, with the buyers, so both sell and buy. What are you working on now, and like what's your primary focus right now?
Yeah, so my primary focus is the investment side. That's what I love. It just makes sense to me. I feel like I see the numbers in a different way, and it's just, if the numbers work, the numbers work. And, you know, so I've got 2 other guys on my team, and we all kind of we work on everything together, but my focus is on the bigger investment stuff. And then the other guys, one does more of the leasing, and then another does more of the more owner user sales and different aspects of that. So, but all in all, we kind of just help each other. And but my focus is on the big investment deals, and just making sense of the numbers, and running. You know, you could take a property, and I'll see a vacant property, like, know the price and know what can be done with it, and start plugging in, you know, numbers, all kinds of assumptions, which I always start off with conservative assumptions. And that's one thing I think a lot of people make mistakes on. New investors, they go to the top of, you know, rates and then minimal expenses, and they're like, oh yeah, this is great, and that's just a recipe for disaster. So I'll get calls from investors in New York all the time. They're like, oh yeah, we're running a model here. Wanted to get your feedback, and what do you think the rates are? We're saying, you know, they're this. I'm like, no, you need to plug that number out. I mean, maybe it might be achievable, but start with the basement, and you know, it's all up from there. So if you can make it work, make the numbers work with low rents and high expenses, and guess what? You're golden. But if it's marginal, I mean, you know, if it's like, all right, well, it's close enough, let me start playing with it then. But that's kind of the initial sniff test.
Yeah. It's so for those that don't know the term investment sales, you know, that's when Eric would go out and put, let's say, an industrial property up for sale that likely already has a tenant in place, income and expense is already historical, and you can analyze it and plug in what debt you're going to use and decide a rate of return, versus like an owner-user property. You know, maybe you have a plumbing company, electrician, logistics company. There's no shortage of companies, and maybe they just need to buy a warehouse, maybe with some surface storage, and they're just going to use it for their own business. So Eric's saying what he's trending towards is investment sales, where you need to look at these deals like the investor. You know, I have cash. If I go into this building, what do I get back on my cash? What's my return of investment, my return on investment? What I think is kind of funny is, you know, I had, you know, roughly 5 years of commercial real estate appraisal, and a lot of people like to argue about cap rates. Well, I pulled these comps, and here's the cap rate. These are trading at a really low cap rate. I personally always like nearly exiting the cap rate argument, because the argument over cap rates is usually still pretty tight. Someone's not arguing it's a 10 cap when it's a 5 cap or something like that. You might be arguing within maybe 100 basis points. Whereas guys like myself and Eric, we know the real magic is in the actual cash flows. Mm-hmm. You know, if you don't want to argue about, you know, say I want to remove myself from a cap rate discussion, well, you can get pretty much anywhere you need to get by working your income and expense assumptions within reason, especially when your cap rate's not going to fluctuate a whole lot. So I learned in my appraisal days, instead of just getting red in the face and arguing about cap rates all day, let's focus on every line item in my P&L and my income and expense, because it's less debatable. We can pull comps on all of it, and the property has already been performing if it's already, you know, if it has historicals. And we got a lot more deals accomplished, and we got a lot more appraisals approved by really digging into the income expense than getting over some cap rate discussion. Yeah. So let's say, you know, somebody in the audience is interested in reaching out to you, they're like, okay, I want to get into this industrial space. I hear a lot, from Amazon and e-commerce and all this stuff. I think most of the audience knows industrial has been a really strong performing sector within commercial real estate. But can you just, speak in kind of broad strokes about the industry, kind of what you've seen over the past better part of 10 years, just a little bit about the segment of commercial industrial real estate?
Yeah. So, I mean, I get calls all the time from guys wanting to get in that asset class. And I'll tell you, if you want to get in it now, you're late to the game. You're not late to it. You're just going to have to work harder than the rest of the people. I mean, there's just so much capital flooding into this market and all markets that I know of. And it's a lot of what I do is not even on the market. A lot of creative value add deals. Like, for example, we've got one of my team members was calling on some owners, and there was he had a warehouse which he didn't end up wanting to sell, but he had this other 20 acres of really good industrial land that wasn't improved, but it was somewhat improved, but not a whole lot. It did have a 20,000 foot warehouse on it. The main value because of its location would be for truck storage or some type of industrial storage lot. And so I just ran some numbers with assumptions. I'm like, all right, well, we knew what price he would sell it for. I knew what kind of rental rates we could get, and I knew roughly, range of construction costs, what it would take to get it, with the rock, permits, tree removal. So I ran some assumptions on that, and it's like, oh, this works beautifully. And I doubled my capital improvement cost from $1 million to $2 million, and it still worked amazingly. Running a 5-10 year cash model with the IRR. I sent it over to one of our preferred clients, and it's like, hey, look at this. What do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, this is. I mean, they took them 2 minutes to. I had it all laid out, did the work. They're like, yep. They own other properties in the area. They're out of state investors, but they know the market, and it was, so. Getting in the industrial right now, you have to be more creative and really know the fundamentals of it. You can't just. I talked to a guy yesterday. He was asking me about the rates for storage lots per acre per lease, and he's like, "Is it true there's $6,000 an acre a month?" I'm like, "I don't know where you heard that from," but no, not at all, not even close. So, they're like, "Yeah, we thought that was kind of high." So, but. Yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to get into it, it's do your homework and just don't expect you call somebody, they're just going to have this magical deal waiting for you. You have to get down in the trenches with the rest of us. And
I like what you said about just the sample deal, and it sounds like that's pretty recent, right?
Yeah, it's in contract right now.
Oh, great. So it's
set to close in January.
An instant deal. Okay. So just to recap what Eric's saying is, here's an offering that might have appeared to be marginal or tight, but Eric sees excess land. He runs numbers on building, I assume, more warehouse or stabilizing the ground.
Yeah, most of the value's in stabilizing the ground.
And somebody without, a keen set of eyes might have missed the excess land component. Let's be honest, 5 years ago, the excess land might not have had a ton of contributory value. It would have had some, but not like today. Mm-hmm. And so to Eric's point, he models it up. He spends probably an extra half day in the file, doing the cash flows, running the models, and sending it out to an investor, and then boom, there you have it. It's just an example of the benefit of working with somebody like yourself in the market, deep market knowledge. You know the values from the warehouses to the land, the cost to stabilize the land, fencing it, whether it should be storage, whether it should be an actual building. Are you near the interstates? Are you near the port? What vendors or owners would want to be here? So, there's just so many things that you can bring to somebody that it just takes years to get there. And you've learned it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've learned it through, what'd you say, 600 transactions. People want to know, how can I learn this industry? The man did 600 industrial transactions. I mean, that's how you learn the industry. And it's just a benefit to working with, especially a buyer's agent. Eric can speak to this, but almost every time, the buyer's fee is going to be paid by the seller. It's a rare circumstance that the buyer's fee is not paid by the seller. So you might as well benefit from somebody like Eric to get your deal done right. even if he's just double checking your numbers, even if you think you know everything that's going on. Now, on this show, most people that appear, you're an expert in industrial real estate. I believe, and you can tell us, you've gotten into some of your own investments outside of your primary residence. And if you could speak to the first deal you did, and I think Eric did something that I'm a big fan of, which is trading services for equity. But I'm going to let Eric speak to that on maybe one of his early deals.
Yeah. So one of that first client, that big client I mentioned, where it paid off with the SEO. They found me told me, they're like, oh my gosh, everything we searched, we found you. So I helped. From that point, they had reached out to me, a group in Colorado, family, awesome guys. They're friends of mine now. They originally contacted me to help them with the leasing, and they quickly realized how much I got it on a big scale, more than the leasing and the investment sales. So they're like, yeah, let's find more of these, and so from that point we just started, because I leased up the property that it was when they bought it in 2014. I think it was about 50% vacant. Bought it at a 10 cap.
And it was a 10 cap with a 50% vacancy?
Yeah,
Nice.
it had 25 $25 a foot.
Woo.
Oh my gosh.
Glory days.
Oh my gosh, I know. Way below market rent. It was beautiful. I mean, it's which I leased that up in 6 months. So they're like, all right, well, we need something else to do, and so we hunted for properties, and I helped them buy 5 or 6 more over a span of a few years, which they're not really buying right now. But on a couple of them, 2 of them, in the beginning, I put in commission for some ownership and management of it, and they loved it. They're like, yeah, you have skin in the game. We know our interests are aligned, and it was. I still wasn't at that point. It was still in the beginning. It wasn't making great money, but I knew it'd pay off in the long run, and to sacrifice the commission for, the smaller interest of ownership.
Mm-hmm. I saw a quote, and I think we're going to throw it up on the Yield Coach Instagram soon, but it was, you can get rich selling real estate, but you get wealthy owning real estate. Mm-hmm. And to Eric's point, taking those commissions is wonderful, and I am not going to fault anybody for taking a fee, but trading that fee and leveraging it into ownership, now you get to ride the appreciation of the investment. It has, God, if you've been doing that over the past 10 years, now you have an exponent on that commission that you had. And if you bought a cash flowing property, now you've had residual cash flow. I was trading fees in deals as well. Just an anecdote. I traded a brokerage fee on a downtown building. I'm going to round some numbers here. Relatively small transaction. I think it was $200,000, but it was a pretty big building. It was 5 stories. It was in downtown Jacksonville, but it was totally vacant. I like to say it was roached out and boarded up, but it had a lot of potential. I didn't have $200 on hand at the time to just buy the building. I brought on a partner that owns hotels in the area. He stroked the check, and what I did is, instead of taking what would have been a $6,000 commission, instead I was able to negotiate 8% ownership. So I didn't get the $6,000. It was actually kind of a difficult deal, but no commission, but I got to keep 8% of the deal. Well, fast forward, we boarded it up. We ran out vagrants, but we didn't really do a whole lot other than a quiet title action, which I think that cost $3,500 for that particular one. We sold it, I want to say 2.5 years later, for $675,000. And I had in our agreement that I was going to be able to broker it on the way out. So so now I got the 3% on $675,000 plus 8% of the upside. So all I'm saying is, I traded a $6,000 fee for a combined probably $60,000. Did it take some patience? Was there some time? Yeah, but I got to work with a professional. We got to do the quiet title. You learn a lot from working with these high-end clients. I think one thing that commercial brokerage get that allows them to become like investor developers faster is just what we're talking about. By facilitating these commercial transactions and doing a good job, you're right there looking over the shoulder of the principals. And if you have an eager mind, you can learn so much. I know Eric has.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much I've learned from my clients that have done very well from so. I take bits and pieces from every one of them, and they all bring different, years of experience and skill, and I love it. I'm just a sponge, and I take care of them, and they're happy to share that, and cheer me on to whatever kind of knowledge they can share. So, that definitely is one of the things to our advantage. Just getting that. Not only is it's not even it's free. We're getting paid to get this kind of intimate knowledge, and
I would go so far as to say, for those that are watching that aren't sure how to get into commercial, I would go so far as to say it may be worth. Let's say you're a residential agent, just hypothetical, because there's a lot of residential agents, and you're like, how do I crack into commercial? I would say, you know what? Forget about your fee. Honestly, don't be calling owners and brokers trying to get big referrals, and you want to learn. Scrub right in, go shoulder to shoulder. Don't worry about a fee for the first, handful of deals, because the learning is what matters.
You got to learn before you earn.
Exactly. And Eric's right. You got to learn before you earn. And, Kiyosaki talks about if you're going to work a job that's going to teach you something, not just give you a check. And by sacrificing commission to learn something that could benefit you for 50 years afterwards, it's a no-brainer. So when you're trying to learn something, don't be so caught up. I know people are like, I don't want to, that developer's greedy, or that commercial broker won't give me a meaningful referral fee. Don't get into that little pissing match. Take the learn out of it.
And I think so many people are just kind of selfish or just can't get past that. And that's kind of what I've realized separates just the sacrifice is a huge, sacrificing a fee, sacrificing time. I've made so many sacrifices over the years, and just you don't get to these different levels by not sacrificing.
Mm-hmm. And I think what you're also getting at too is by sacrificing, you are not putting yourself forward. You're putting somebody else forward, knowing that the sea is going to rise all the boats, and you're one of those boats. But you're going to let that sea rise, and you're going to rise, and you're going to learn from the process. Mm-hmm. And I did so much work in my 20s that, I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I was doing a lot of appraisal work and valuation work. And, in appraisal, the fee is set by the bank if you're doing bank work. I did a lot of things that were above and beyond, but I just knew I wanted to round myself out as a professional. So, if I didn't feel great about my 4 comps and I wanted 2 more, but the bank was probably okay with the 4 that I had, in that day and age, I would make the extra calls. I would try and find something, even if it's not another perfect comp. I just wouldn't stop until I felt really good about what I was rendering. And if I didn't understand my cash flow model, I would go to my mentor, Eric Hector, and he would work through the model with me. It would have been really easy to just send over my work product to my supervisor, let him review it, clean it up, get it ready for the bank. It wouldn't have been a problem. The value was fine, but I wouldn't have been learning. You know what I mean? So I think we're seeing a trend here with those that really rise to the top, lifelong learners. They routinely don't put themselves first, and they're willing to trade time for experience. It's a long game.
Yeah, and put what you just mentioned, putting others first. That I was going to mention that earlier. One of the principles I learned in the Air Force, one of their other sayings, it's service before self. So
I like that.
It's your country before yourself in the military, and in this world, it's your client's needs before your own, which a lot of people don't do. They put their needs first, and you're not going to go anywhere. You put your personal needs before your clients. It's a recipe for disaster.
Service before self. I like that. That's a great takeaway. We might need to bundle that up and throw that online. I like that. Fast forwarding a little bit today. You're really deep. I mean, I won't say you're at a crescendo, because I think you're just going to be like a constant crescendo. Every time I see you, there'll be some new high point. But, where you are today, what are some of I won't call it a plateau, but from the elevation you're on now, what are some of the things as you look out that you want to do? Some of your goals, kind of personal and professional, from where you've made yourself today.
Yeah. From I guess professional and personal, really just get to a point of having sustainable passive cash flow and kind of merging out of. I'll never stop brokering. I love it. It's I'll always have key clients, but kind of and this isn't a 1 year plan, more of a 10-year plan where kind of exit out of the brokerage and just have built a portfolio that's kind of the next goal. So
that's a good one.
Yeah.
And I know I mentioned this earlier, but for people that are wondering, how could I ever become skilled at selling like a fully leased 12-tenant industrial warehouse? Well, one way, it's not easy, but one way would be brokerage. If you get good at selling investment real estate, I sold hotels, apartments, some land deals, a little bit of everything, but you're going to get good at it by doing it. It's going to be hard to just take a course, watch a video. Don't get me wrong, courses and videos are great resources, but those are great to supplement you while you're actually doing. How does Eric learn about a property? Well, guess what? Somebody called him with, some property that's probably 3 industrial bays, some little self-storage over here, maybe some land for lease, maybe a little drive-through ice machine. It's got a little bit of everything on it, and you've got to figure out, is this the highest and best use? I need to run cash flows and all this stuff. You learn by doing it, by running those models.
Well, one thing that helps is actually doing the leasing aspect of it. There's a lot of brokers that only want to do the investment side, but they've never done any leasing, so they don't really truly understand the leasing fundamentals. Where I've done leases of every shape and size and know with the highest confidence whatever assumptions I'm making on leasing, and what the vacancy is, what the rates are, where it's going, what the downside, the upside, what kind of tenants are going to give the biggest return, and what kind of issues you can expect or with certain tenants. So that's one thing that's helped me greatly. Is when I started in the business, I would take whatever crap listing I could get, for lease, and just work my tail off, get it leased up. And what then started to evolve was those clients would let me help them sell it as an investment, and so I added that value for them, and I knew that property in the tenant mix intimately, better than anybody, and so
I couldn't agree more with your point about knowing your leasing, and you also, I know you didn't mention it much because it's not the sexy side of commercial real estate, but I mean, you're also a very strong property manager if you need to be. I know you've gone towards investment sales, but the fact that Eric has been doing leasing, management, and investment sales, and like he said, how do you break into the industry? Well, your first opportunity is probably going to be putting a property up for lease that you'd probably rather not, and just doing the work. Maybe it's 1,000 square feet, and people are going to be calling you trying to do a month-to-month lease or something.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, how do I make any money? But by Eric working all the way up from there to where he is now, he knows every facet of the industry. So I really think you're at a point where within your concentration of industrial real estate, you're fairly bulletproof. And no one's going to, say you work on behalf of a buyer, so flip over. Now you're repping a buyer. You go into investment. You look at the leases within this investment transaction. No one's going to fool you. You're not going to miss some like move out clause where like your main tenant can pay, a few months liquidated damages fee in bulk, a breakup clause or something. And these are just critical because when I hear about people, especially in the past 10 years when the economy's been strong and growing, really the people, not all of them, but almost universally, the deals that I hear that burned people, they miss something glaring like that. You know what I mean? We've had rising rents, lowering interest rates, and lowering cap rates, for like 10 years. So like the people that I see making errors, they're missing things that like Eric or a professional like him would be able to find on your behalf.
Yeah, we've got a fairly new client. We met him after he had a deal in contract, and we weren't part of the helping him buy it, but we've helped him buy other stuff since and helping him with the leasing on the property he did buy. But we weren't privy to the leases that were in place on this deal. And they said we offered to look at them for him and just give any feedback. And they're like, "Oh no, it's all good. We had our guy. He reviewed everything. They close on the deal, and we start working on the leases. And we're like, we need to see what lease sent him over. It was a disaster. It was horrible. I can't remember the exact. I was like, what in the world, you guys? Did you read this? I forget what it was exactly, but it was bad. I mean, we're still dealing with it, and there's some of it we're able to work through and get straightened up for them, but there's one or two they're just stuck with for a little while. They're not getting rid of that.
So you've told us how you've traded some fees for equity. It's been a good move for you. Obviously, if there's brokers or agents listening, you don't really want to do the trade fee for equity with just anybody. These want to be like your better clients, people that you trust, because again, now you're going into a partnership, more like a marriage instead of a quick pop of a brokerage fee.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be my one cautionary tale: is don't do this with just any client.
Yeah,
but
I've had people ask me like, I appreciate it. Now I'm working on my own stuff right now. Yeah, no, there's only a handful of people.
There are deals that you're better off just taking your commission and leaving. And maybe even if the deal is great, juicy, has great margins, if I go into better partnership with this particular group, I'm never getting out alive. I'll never see the money that I think I'm going to make anyways. So you want to be very selective in your partnerships. That's a topic for a whole nother podcast. What deal so far, and there might be a handful, taught you your greatest lesson to date? And again, it could be one of a few. And what was it?
In what capacity?
Well, like if you got into a deal where by the time you got out of it, or maybe it fell apart, you had an epiphany that kind of changed the way you think or approach the industry forever forward. I know, I'll just speak for myself. When I was initially getting into commercial brokerage, this sounds so naive now, but if somebody emailed me or shook my hand, I put too much weight on probably informal communication because I'm naturally trusting. I just do what I say, and that's just how I was raised, and that's just how I operate. But I got, for lack of a better term, I got cut out or minimalized on some deals early on that I could have avoided just through better documentation and papering up, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's one of my big takeaways was there were some deals that, and the worst thing is when you don't have any money and you just, here you are giving away.
Good luck.
Yeah, you're accidentally giving away, all of this income. And the truth is, I hate to say it, the industry sees you as green. They're taking advantage of you at that point for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like tattoo on your forehead.
Yeah, you've got a neon flashing sign.
Yeah.
Sucker.
Yeah, that made me grow up pretty quickly. So that was just an example on my
end. No, and then, to that extent, the industry, they're shrewd. It's hardcore. People will look for opportunities to screw other people over, and as you get more seasoned, you're able to sniff those out and just avoid them altogether. But sometimes you can't avoid them completely. But getting everything in writing. It's but there's certain clients, I would never worry about it, but we still have to get in writing, and certain things you want to put in writing and certain things you don't want to put in writing. It's like, it's like, all right, well, do I want this? I'll call this person, and not that it's wrong or dishonest, but just being very careful on how you communicate is a key aspect. I think picking who, obviously when you start off, you just get whatever business. And, when I started off, I had a lot of clients that I would never work for again. And that's just part of the sacrifice, though, and it's those dishonest people, just trying to avoid them. And so one thing that I learned over the years too is it takes the same amount of time. Actually, it probably takes less time focusing on bigger deals than it does the smaller deals. And I talk to my guys all the time, and we don't have the time for that. But that comes with time. You can't immediately go into that unless you're sitting on a huge savings or trust fund. And
I totally understand, and I think what Eric's saying should resonate with.
Which you did well, though. Your first big deal. That you spent an entire year on that. You were so laser focused on selling that hotel.
Yeah. So my first year of brokerage, I would not actually recommend people do this, but I went straight into what Eric was calling investment sales is the term. So I'm selling an investment deal, and my concentration before brokerage was in hotel appraisal. So I understand hotels, cash flows, franchises, and I know the parties. I know who lends on them. I know who buys them. I know who owes them. So I go into that in Northeast Florida, and I had a handful of hotel listings whether they're kind of pocket listings or full-blown signed committed listings. But the challenge is, in between, I had just no cash flow. It's just like a melting ice cube, and it was like melting with a hairdryer on it. It was going really fast. And I was coming right out of law school, and you come out of law school with six-figure student loans that are on income-based repayment, but still everything's just chipping away at that modest little nest egg you thought you had. And ultimately, I did sell a $5 million hotel that had like a gross commission over $200,000, and that was it. That kind of set me on a path. But to those that are listening, what I should have done is more like what Eric was doing. He's doing some leasing. He's doing a little bit of property management. He's still got some investment sales. He was diversified within brokerage, where I'm like Don Quixote charging these windmills, or I'm out in the Serengeti hunting elephants when I probably should have snagged a few rabbits here and there.
I mean, as long as you're laser focused and you had the means to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I think in a perfect world, it might be a 50-hour, 60-hour plus work week instead of a 40-hour, but if you can find a way to have keep the lights on cash flow, it'll allow you to pursue the bigger deals, because you won't die on the vine so fast. Your rate of attrition gets stretched out a little bit. But there's different philosophies. Some people say, burn the ships on the beach. There's no going back. I'm either selling this hotel or I'm going bankrupt. By God. So who's with me? So it's just, you got to know yourself. You got to know your personality. Are you someone who's self-reliant? What's your spouse going to think of it? Like do you have kids? What are your contingency plans here? So for me, it worked out. But I will say, in hindsight, it was a little on the reckless side. But hey, here we are. Does take a little bit of good fortune. All right, so moving just a little bit into the, kind of start wrapping up here. Your greatest, if you have like an influence or an influencer, or like maybe there's some books or an individual, what's kind of had a big imprint on you? Was there anything that you took in that you were like, wow, that's kind of changed the way I think about stuff?
No, man. I don't know if this changed the way I thought about stuff, but I will say, when I started off, and hopefully it doesn't offend anybody if it does, well, what if? When I had no money, nothing to do, I read, I think, probably every Donald Trump book there was, Art of the Deal, and all the real estate. I was just fascinated by, these creative transactions he would do, all the different moving pieces. And I think that did have a huge impact, just seeing, whether I've done anything remotely similar to what he's done on all those different deals. But it just showed me how creative you can get with these things. And, there's the best deals are the ones that aren't neon lights flashing, writing on the wall. It's sifting through all the crap. And so, like I said, I read almost every single book in the little tiny 600 square foot apartment I was living in.
Your reading studio.
Oh, yeah. And then the clients along the way, I've learned to gravitate and absorb every certain clients that are just a wealth of information and take care of me. I take care of them. And
I'm glad you said clients, because if you do work let's say you service investors, I've done real estate law, the title and escrow and brokerage and appraisal. If you're lucky enough to service an industry that's already in investment and you have a chance to learn from your clients, I mean, it's like a free internship. And the brokerage, honestly, is probably the best, because you're really like shoulder to shoulder or looking right over their shoulder. They make the decision, but you're laying everything out. And then they're telling you, after you lay things out, what else they need to know. So you start to think, well, why'd they ask that question? I remember early on, somebody was like, I want C-class concrete block, multifamily, Northeast Florida, and we'll pay up to $20,000 a door. And I remember, I'd already been an appraiser. So I was like, what a silly, basic, rudimentary approach. I'm like, that's not sophisticated at all. You want concrete block anywhere in this metro, up to $20K a door. I'm like, really? Like, that's your... And then by working with them, I was like, oh, well, there's not a lot of property in Jacksonville. This is going back a few years. Even in rough neighborhoods, there weren't a lot of properties residentially renting for under $500 a month. Now it's higher, but back then 500 was kind of a floor. Even for a really rough property, it tended to get about $500. So I started to realize, well, if they're willing to pay $20 a door, it rents for $500 a month. What they're really telling me, with some variation, is they're looking for a deal that's between about a 10 and 15% cap rate, possibly more. But they're not telling me they want a 10 to 50% cap rate. I'm just looking at 20 a door, running it out against the rent, market expenses. Let's say it drops 50% NOI. And I'm like, oh. And it's takeaways like that that were so simple that I came from a complex background of running, or working within commercial real estate appraisal. Then I get in and I watch the behaviors and habits of those that are having wild financial success in investment. They're not necessarily thinking like an appraiser. They're narrowing down what's on their mind to just like a handful of critical components. And that helped me out so much because I still had the technical background, but I was able to think like, well, why would somebody do that? Like in the hotel world, I learned some buyers they'll look at the hotel. Let's say it's 100 units. And let's say the hotel runs like a $23 RevPAR. RevPAR is ADR times occupancy. You get RevPAR. Well, I met an investor. They're like, oh, well, we just never pay over 1,000 times RevPAR per unit. Well, I know that sounds a little complex, but if you write it out or put it in a spreadsheet, it's very simple. So if a property does, let's say, $23 RevPAR times 1,000, you can pay $23,000 per door. They call it a key in hotels, times however many there are in the property. And I'm like, well, that's pretty simple. But if you run out let's say you run the RevPAR in a formal model, you realize once again, it's probably going to place you in certainly a double-digit cash-on-cash unleveraged.
Yeah.
And so, but by being able to filter and sort a ton of properties quickly, like is anybody willing to sell 1,000 times RevPAR per unit or 20 a door concrete block anywhere in Northeast Florida, you're just quickly filling your funnel instead of wasting your time running in-depth cash flows on everything you find.
Yeah.
But I would have never learned that just doing appraisal.
Yeah.
Doing appraisal, I got to run formal models on every assignment. It's part of the deal. By working as a broker or with principal investors, you pick up, they're almost like hacks. They're like tips and tricks and hacks.
Oh, yeah, exactly. No, some of the largest client I have done the most amount of transactions, large transactions with an out-of-state investor. Yeah, I mean, he has very, very rudimentary, basic core principles, and on the surface, it's like, oh wow, that's pretty simple, but there's a lot more behind it of what it actually equates to, and so when you pull in the rents and the cash on cash or your leverage IRR, I mean that's one thing that I've definitely learned, and once I figured that out, and he's probably one of the clients that took me to the next level on the investment stuff. It's like, you see the numbers and putting them all together, and done a lot of off-market stuff with him just because the tenants, the rates, and value deals, and it's.
What it can be is essentially, I started with the question being like, who are your influences, but you answered with some of your clients, and I love that answer because what you can get in this industry is almost like a mentorship. And these mentorships, go online, Google, industrial real estate mentorship or industrial real estate investment boot camp. These are not free courses,
no.
And they're not necessarily taught by people that you want to learn from or have credibility. So one great thing that Eric said is, you essentially got free mentorship, really paid mentorship. Paid, blood, sweat, and tears in the beginning, and then it starts to bear fruit, and now you're doing your own investment deals. Eric's already told us he looks to be, financially free in the upcoming years with passive income, always brokering. I love it. Let's jump into just a couple of hobbies and interests. People know, a little bit of what you're up to in your personal life. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it on down.
Yeah, pretty much my personal life hobbies consist of my ranch. Got my nice little personal ranch here in Jacksonville, right in the middle of town. Been fortunate enough to pick up 13 acres. I've got goats and chickens and ducks, getting a couple cows, beautiful barn pasture, so that's kind of pretty much my way of unwinding. I'll deal with a gruesome day of brokerage, mind numbing, get home, put on the farm gear, go drive the tractor, and play with the farm animals, whatever it is, ATVs. And then also recently, right now, my hobbies have been Christmas lights. Spectacular. Got quite a bit of real estate to fill with lights, and it's fun. It brings me some simple joys.
I've had the benefit of visiting Eric's ranch, and it's right in the heart of Jacksonville, but he has this beautiful ranch, and he runs his gator, and he has his goats, and it really is cool. So, I'm happy for you. You've got a great thing going for you and your family.
It's a little bit different in Glenwood.
It is a little different. You've come a long way since the 500 square foot studio apartment. As we wrap up, where can people find you? Website, social, whatever you want to share.
Google me. Eric Bumgarner.
Google Eric Bumgarner, and you will find him.
Yeah. On Collier's website, LinkedIn, CoStar, Crexy, LoopNet, Showcase. I don't know. There's more. I'm on more websites than I really even know about. But
I think you're gonna be.
I don't do Facebook anymore, though.
I think you're our only guest.
Account.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
I think you're our only guest that's going to answer that way, because he is a man you can just straight Google and you will find him. He's early adopter of technology, as we said. All right. Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a show. I'm your host, Ian Brown. You can find us on Instagram, Yield Coach, Facebook, Yield Coach. I mentioned before we're trying the TikTok thing. I don't have it figured out. This show will be on all of your podcast networks, as well as our YouTube channel if you want to watch it and see how handsome we are. And with that, we'll keep you posted on any upcoming events. And this is Coach Brown telling you to leave it all on the field. Bye.